What's up you guys? In this video we're gonna work on this book in 3ds Max and Substance Painter, so please like this video and please share it around if you have some free time. Alright, we're gonna start working on this book in 3ds Max, and we're gonna start off with a box. So we're gonna go to primitive geometry and create something that looks like this. Probably is gonna be something like 25 centimeters by 20 centimeters or 30 by 20. It depends on how big the book is gonna be, so change the size to something reasonable, and after that we're gonna start adding some details. Okay, so after converting it to editable poly, probably change push actually delete some of the polygons that we don't really need for now, and we're gonna start adding some details. So the first thing we're gonna work on is actually is gonna be the outer cover of the book. So this is gonna be really important because the book is actually we're gonna create this book basically based on two parts, the cover and the papers. And as you can see here, we're trying to actually extrude this area here because this here is gonna actually cover the that back of the book where it's gonna be solid and curved, and this area is really important because there are some details and stuff in it, so we're gonna actually take care of it in a nice way. So as you can see here, we'll try to add few edges in between because this area here is gonna be smooth and it's gonna be round. So we're gonna actually push this edge in that direction. I'm gonna chamfer it because chamfer helps to actually to smooth things out and make sure that there is a nice transition if we actually try to chamfer an edge that is actually getting, or actually between two other edges, and but not in the same plane, on the same plane. So right now we'll try to add a modifier that is a shell modifier. Shell modifier is actually known for giving thickness to surfaces, and in this particular case it comes very handy. So adding it will allow us to actually add some thickness. We're not gonna go crazy here because we want a small value. Make sure it is proportional to the size of the book, and this is actually can be changed any moment later, so we don't have to worry too much about it. For now, we're gonna inset these or extrude these two polygons here, the one on the top and the one on the very top, and from the very bottom, and we're gonna make sure that they are gonna be extruded properly. Okay, after we do that, we're gonna make sure also that they're not kind of extruded too far or pushed too far from the surface, because this is gonna be exaggerated. So we're gonna use the scale tool in order to bring them back, and you're gonna look at it from the perspective viewport. If it does look acceptable, if it does look nice, then you're gonna go with that. Probably here we're going to actually make things a little bit more interesting because it seems like we have some work to do here. But if this is gonna be, if it looks nice already, you're gonna keep it as it is, and if you think that it needs some work, you're gonna change it, as you can see me doing here. Okay, it seems like that was actually a good thing that we did, because the inner surface seems like it had some work. Okay, so you're gonna actually copy that polygon. Just keep holding shift and move it in order to create a copy of it. So this one here, this polygon, is gonna represent papers. So believe it or not, we're gonna create probably 100 papers, and we're gonna copy them all over the place. But this is not gonna make it. This is not going to make it to the low poly version, because we know that we're gonna do baking and stuff. So everything is gonna be baked into a normal map that we'll use in order to simulate these numbers, these huge numbers of papers. This is not gonna be realistic because a book will have probably 150 or 250 papers, or a book that is gonna be that thick probably is gonna have like 400 papers, which is a lot. So we cannot do this. We're gonna do something similar to it, close at least close. So we're gonna add the shell modifier in order to give that piece of paper some thickness, even though this is not realistic. It's gonna be actually paper is actually a third when it comes to thickness. The goal is actually to create something that appears to be what we want to show a person on the viewport. So it doesn't matter whether it be realistic or not. What matters the most is when you look at it, you feel like it is something kind of mimics reality. Okay, here we are, and we will actually try to support this piece of paper, and we're going to apply support edges early on this piece, because I want to see how this is going to look, and before we commit to it and create 100 papers or 80 papers or something like that, I want to see how this is going to look like. Okay, after adding Turbo Smooth, we can see that there is a nice result there, and it should look fine when we actually start copying it. So we're gonna select that one here, and we're gonna make sure that you are holding Shift, and we are trying to create some copy instances. We're gonna go with a big number, and we will see. So first of all, we're going to first of all, we will try to actually create half, and we're gonna copy the other half, because there are some modifications and there are some adjustments we need to take care of. For instance, we're gonna move these papers to the left side, because we want them to be leaning back against that curved surface that we created earlier. And to do this, we need to shift the pivot to the very left in order to make it easier for us to grab every piece of paper and move it to the left. So as you can see here, it's a little bit confusing to look at it like this. It doesn't look realistic at all. But when we start doing the adjustments and moving the vertices and stuff, you're gonna see what we're gonna be capable of creating something really nice. So stick with us, and I will show you how to do this. Okay, so for now, I'm probably going to make this probably a little bit thicker than this, because thickness of that paper was really too low, and it didn't seem like it is gonna be good enough probably. But added just a little bit thickness probably is gonna make it a little bit better. You can keep it as it is though, but I think adding some thickness is gonna be better. Okay, anyways, so now with the pivot to the very left, we can actually start copying and start moving our papers to the left. And we're gonna create that nice curved effect that we will see in books. Even though it's not very realistic, it's gonna be actually conveying the message that this is a real book. Sometimes aiming for realism is gonna make it look fake sometimes, but sometimes it works. Okay, we will start moving these vertices to actually these papers to the left, and we're gonna go with that curve that you can see on the left. And once we reach the center of the book, we're gonna stop and copy it over. Okay, once we do this, you can see here that that we actually finished half of that book, and we'll copy this over to the other side. So make sure it is an instance and flip it on the z-axis, and you should be able to see the other half taking place exactly like we want it to be. And this is just the beginning. We are not done yet, because there are some things that we actually need to take care of, like some modifications and some adjustments, some randomness that we need to create. Right now it does look better than it was with that curve that we created, but hold on, this is just the beginning, because there are some things we need to take care of, which is adding some randomness, some kind of distortions, some imperfections that are really good to add. So imperfection is really important here, because it kind of breaks that feeling of being kind of too organized and too clean and stuff. I don't like that, and it's not realistic. Even though a book might look like that in real life, but if you want to make things look real, you're gonna aim for that imperfection and randomness and chaos, because it gives an impression that the thing that you're working on is really realistic. You can create actually something organized and stuff and still look good, but I think it's gonna be difficult than the approach that we are taking right now. So we will try randomly move. We will try to move some of these papers, and as you can see here, I changed the view, some of the parameters of the viewport to clay, because this will allow me to see clearer, and it's gonna, because the number of polygons we are dealing here with is enormous. So this way we can see better actually. Okay, after we work on the element of randomness in these papers, we're gonna probably do this also to the right side, and to the side, the left and the right side, or the top or the bottom, whatever direction you are considering right now. You're gonna do it from all the sides actually, because it's gonna give more realism, and it's gonna give the impression that this thing here is real. Okay, when you're done with that, we're gonna go to the back of the book, and we're gonna start adding some edges. These edges here are gonna be kind of important, because there are some small pieces in the back that are gonna be popping out, and we're gonna use some beautiful ornaments and some decorations to actually make them even stand out and more pronounced and stuff. So we're gonna chamfer these edges a little bit, because we need a few polygons to be extruded right there, and we're gonna go with something like 0.5 centimeter or 1 centimeter, depending on what you want it to look like. And we're gonna select these polygons. As you can see, we're gonna select them manually, and we're gonna extrude them, by the way. So we're gonna go to the extrude option right there. We're gonna go with local normal. Probably we're not gonna go with local normal, because it does look a little bit not that great. So we're gonna go with normal group, and we're not gonna overdo it. We just need a few millimeters probably. We just want it to be actually we want it to be standing out just a little bit. We don't want it to be all the way out. Okay, also we want to target weld some of the vertices on the bottom and on the top, because even though I like it, but it's not gonna look good. So we have to target weld these vertices, even though we're gonna end up with some triangles. But in the end of the day, we want the transition to be smooth. So those polygons on the top and the bottom are not really helping us are not doing us any good. So we better get rid of those. Okay, so for the most part, the modeling the modeling process is, or the overall modeling process is almost done, and there are actually a few things that we need to take care of, like the lock and stuff that are going to be on the right side of the book, which is going to be interesting as well. So for now, we're going to create some pins that are gonna be on top of the cover using a sphere. So this sphere is not gonna be we're not gonna be working with a complete sphere, so we're gonna only use a hemisphere, and we're gonna try to place it exactly on top of that cover. And we're gonna reduce the number of segments a little bit. Probably we're gonna go with something smaller than that, and we're gonna convert it to editable poly and delete that vertex and all the polygons that are surrounded it, because it's not gonna be seen and it's going to be covered and stuff, and we better get rid of those. Okay, we're gonna copy this pin here a few times. It's gonna be four copies on the top and 4 from the bottom. Okay, we're gonna select these 4, and we're gonna keep holding shift and copy them over to the other side. Make sure you flip them as well using the mirror option right there on the z-axis, and this depends absolutely depends on the viewport you're in, because sometimes depending on the viewport the axis changes and stuff. Okay, for now we're gonna start working on the lock that I was talking about. There are gonna be 2, one on the right side and one on the left side, or one on the top, one on the bottom. It actually doesn't matter which direction we're talking about, because you're gonna understand by looking at it. So we're gonna place this somewhere close to something like this, and we're going to start adding some details. So we're gonna chamfer these 2 vertices, as you can see here, and we'll try to connect them like this. Okay, copy it as a copy, not as an instance, because it's gonna be absolutely different. So we don't want the other shape or the other surface to be changed or something like that. So we're gonna work on it separately, and we're gonna treat it differently. Okay, we're gonna make it a little bit narrower, and of course it's gonna have a different shape and stuff, so we're gonna make it a little bit taller, and we will try to give it a unique shape that you will see me working on in a few seconds. Okay, we will make that arrow looking surface a little bit smoother from the top, and of course we're gonna add some thickness to these planes here, because we are not planning to leave them like this. So the shell modifier comes handy in these situations. I think the amount of thickness I'm gonna work with is gonna change later, so this is not something, this is not final. Probably we're gonna change it later depending on how it looks. And sometimes when you work on something and kind of pull yourself away from it, actually step back and come back to see it later, you're gonna actually see it differently. So probably this is gonna be subject to change at any moment in a given in a given situation. Probably you're going to actually treat it differently. Okay, we're gonna use some of the pins that we created previously, and what we will do for the most part is just to copy it and rotate it 90 degrees, and try to position it exactly on top of the surfaces that we are gonna work with. And probably it's gonna be a little bit smaller because this one seems to be big, absolutely big. Okay, after we position it like this, we're gonna copy it probably 1 or 2 times, and I think there are gonna be 2 that are gonna be looking similar, and the other one is gonna be different. Even though I wanted to actually create something different here when it comes to the third one, but I thought, well, we are probably gonna work with something that is gonna be similar but just smaller in size. For me, the part I enjoy the most is when we reach the technical details and stuff. In the future, so far on my channel, I'm keeping things simple, actually simpler than I want, but because for the most part, people who are beginners prefer something simple to learn with. So you're not gonna actually create something very complicated to learn something simple. So it does make sense. In the future, however, we're gonna try to actually step up and level up and make sure that we're gonna create some spectacular stuff. For now, we are creating some layers, and one for the high poly and one for the low poly. So these are gonna be important for the baking process and stuff, and things we're gonna talk about later. So the high poly, you call it whatever you want, like book_HP, and create another copy that you're gonna call, for example, book_LP. This is really important because there are gonna be 2 ways here that we're gonna actually work that we're gonna take. So the first one is going to be with the high poly, in which we're going to add some support edges, and we're going to add the turbo smooth modifier in order to make it smoother and stuff. And for the low poly, we're going to do the inverse. We're going to actually reduce the number of polygons, and we're going to remove all the polygons and vertices and edges that we don't really need, in order to actually make it low poly. So as you can see here, we are trying to actually add what we call the support edges in order to support the corners and the edges that need to be supported, since we're going to add the turbo smooth modifier, because the turbo smooth modifier doesn't know which areas are going to be smooth and which areas are going to be hard edge or solid. So this way we're going to be able to tell it exactly and guide it intelligently, because it is a piece of software. It doesn't know what we want, right? but we know what we want, so we're gonna tell exactly where the areas that need to be supported and the areas that need to be actually be smoothed out. So this is an accurate process. So it's not a science, but it's gonna give us some accurate results. So we're gonna try to add these supporting edges all over the place, and we're gonna make sure that some difficult situations like these are gonna be taken care of. For example, these areas where we have triangles are gonna be a little bit difficult to add support edges to. At least they're not gonna be as straightforward as the other areas. So preferably you're gonna add two, because you're gonna be able to separate and push, and you're gonna get rid of the other one that you don't really need. So you are going to select the areas that you need to actually work on and add supporting edges to, and you're gonna get rid of the one that you don't really need. Okay, so after we add the Turbo Smooth modifier, you can see clearly that we have done a pretty good job. Also with the clay version here of shading in the viewport, it looks awesome, it looks amazing. So for the most part, we are done with the process of creating the high poly version. And I think there are a few pieces that we need to support. So the cover is taken care of very nicely, and I love it so far. It's really nice. And when it comes to these pieces, it shouldn't that big of a deal, because these pieces here, you can add Turbo Smooth straight away, and it's gonna work. It's gonna work just fine. You don't have to worry about it too much. So for these pieces here, it's gonna be real simple, nothing complicated about it. Simple boxes and stuff. This is no brainer. You just add where you think is gonna be hard edge and stuff, and you're gonna be good. You can add actually extra edges for extra support if the piece you want to support is actually too long, but for the most part, it's not gonna be that problematic. Like this piece here, you can add you can add 2 or 3 edges in between in order to maintain the support and kind of reduce the strain on the edges. But if you think that you can pull it off without doing that, I think this will be fine too. Okay, for now I think we're done with the process of adding supporting edges and stuff, and we actually finished working on the high poly version, and this is gonna be this is actually a stepping stone in our tutorial here. And next we're gonna work on what we call the low poly version and UV unwrapping and stuff, which are gonna be which are gonna be taken care of soon, very soon. Okay, for now we're gonna bring the low poly version, and we're gonna actually try to make it low poly. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to get rid of these details in the back, because they're not gonna be necessary, and they're gonna be taken care of using the high poly version and the bacon process and stuff, and using normal maps. But deleting those is going to be a little bit tricky, so we're going to have to select the polygons that we need to remove, and we're going to bring back everything else together by bridging. So we're going to select the edges that are going to be bridged like this, and when we are done, we are going to bridge those simply like that. And when we are done, we're going to actually select the edges, double click, and control backspace to remove those. We could have actually, to be honest, we could have actually deleted the whole thing together, and it's gonna be just fine, something like this. So we can actually keep both ends, and we're gonna delete everything in between. Then we're gonna bridge everything together, because it's gonna be flat surface after all, so there isn't really a lot of things we can do about it. I didn't think about that first, but now I can see clearly that this is very possible. So now we're gonna get rid of those areas here, which is gonna be real simple actually. So we're gonna select them like this, then delete. This is actually taking longer than I expected, but anyways, sometimes you have to deal with these situations. It's not that big of a deal though. Okay, sometimes also we need to remove certain edges that are gonna be really not necessary, and like the vertices and the edges that are not adding too much to our silhouette. For this piece here, it's gonna be real simple and obvious. So what we'll do is we will just target well these vertices and push them to the corners, because this is a flat surface after all. This shouldn't be that big of a deal. Okay, for now we're gonna deal with the real poly-saving geometry here, so which is paper. So papers here have a tremendous number of polygons collectively, and when we remove those, we're gonna save ourselves a ton of poly count. So in order to create the low poly version of papers, we're gonna use these papers as a guide. So what we'll do, actually, first of all, I was trying to use one of these papers as I don't know. I was trying to actually create a start from there and take it all the way to the from the bottom to the upper area, or the inverse. But I realized that was a stupid idea. We will actually create another plane, and this plane actually is going to be covering all these papers, and we'll actually make sure that everything is gonna look nice when we are done with that. So we'll actually add a add an edge in the center. So we're gonna connect these two, and we're gonna push that vertex or that edge, whatever it is, to the back of that cover, and we will chamfer that edge according to what we've done in order to get the result that we want. Then I realized, after trying this method too, I realized after trying, as you will see right now, I realized that probably this is a stupid idea too. Because for the most part, because we already have something that is going to help us. So which is going to be actually the back of the the back side of the book, or the cover of the book itself. So this is going to be a good starting point. So why we are wasting our time trying to recreate it over and over again? So I think this is the best way to do it when it comes to saving time and accuracy. So right now we will actually need only the plane on the side. So this is what we're gonna work with, and it's gonna be much more accurate, and it's gonna be saving us a lot of time and work and stuff, and snapping vertices and edges and stuff, which is gonna be insane and time consuming. So this is gonna be real fast. Okay, so sometimes ideas don't pop up to your mind that quickly, so you're gonna have to try few methods until you get the right one, and it's gonna be you're gonna be able to get what you want. Okay, for now we're going to use the shell modifier in order to give this plane thickness and cover the whole area. So we're going to push it all the way to the other side, and this should do it. So right now what we will do is we are trying to remove all the vertices actually, or the papers that we don't really need, that are part of the high poly, and we already created the low poly version that we need. So anything else is going to be really not necessary. So we're going to bring back our low poly version, and it should look like something that we want to see on our final product. Okay, I think we are done with the process of preparing the low poly version, and it seems like we are ready to jump to the process of working on the UVs. So we're going to select one of these pieces. We're going to start off with the cover, apply the UV unwrap modifier, and open the UV editor. So we're going to go to mapping, and I'm going to use box mapping for this one, because it's the quickest way to get what we want. It's going to be helping us to scatter everything all over the place. And our job is to organize everything and put it in the right order. So we're gonna try to actually separate or bring out, or just actually push out the elements or the UV elements that we think that are ready and that they are finished. So the other pieces that are scattered all over the place need to be stitched and things like these, and this is what we're gonna do actually. And of course, there is the element of organizing and putting everything together, which is going to be really important as well, because at the end of the day, we're trying to end up with something that we call the UV template, and the UV template is really important, and we're going to use it in Photoshop and in Substance Painter for the process of texturing, and it's going to be real crucial. And if we do it correctly, it's gonna be a real help for our progress and stuff. Okay, right now when we are actually when we organize everything, we're gonna push it to the side, and we're gonna open the UV actually the material editor, because we're gonna apply the checker texture. So about the checker texture is the checker texture is something that you're gonna find online. You're gonna use any kind of checker texture you want, and you're gonna apply it in order to actually make sure that everything's gonna be properly UV'd, and in order to make sure that there aren't any stretches, any weird kind of skewed parts and stuff. And also we're going to use it in order to compare the size of the UV islands on different pieces. This is really going to be important as well. So right now we're going to UV unwrap the papers, and for the most part it's going to be the same work as the cover of the book. We're going to use the box mapping, and we're going to organize the pieces that are going to be finished, and we're going to stitch all the pieces that are going to be separated. So to stitch the pieces, of course, you're going to right click on an edge and stitch selected, or the shortcut is going to be Shift S from the keyboard. Okay, when you're done with that piece, you're going to apply the checker texture, and the rest is just small pieces that you need to work on real quick. So here we're going to actually deal with some pieces that are extremely simple. So there isn't a lot of explanation we can do here, but I know sometimes I try to oversimplify stuff and things. So if you are an extremely beginner in an extremely beginner stage, excuse me if I'm not explaining things to the letter, because I'm not trying to excuse myself here, but I sometimes kind of someone who does things for a long period of time, for years and stuff. Things actually seem trivial after that period of time, but if you are new to something, you want to know everything, all the details. So if I don't explain something, please leave a comment in the comment section below to let me know what you're asking about, and or if there is something you are actually wondering about and you don't know how to do it. That's why we have a comment section, I guess. So don't hesitate, it helps me as well to know what you think and what you want to know and stuff, and I'll be happy to answer your questions, by the way. And also there is a community here, and if you have any questions as well, there are going to be people who are gonna very glad to help and to show you the way, and to answer your questions. Okay, when we are done with that piece, we're going to actually put it aside and apply the checker texture to it. and this will actually is gonna be an indicator that we've done the job, and this piece is finished. When it comes to these pins, it's gonna be something similar. It's gonna be even simpler than that. As you can see here, these pins are actually similar when it comes to their UVs. So what we'll do is we're gonna copy the UV from one and paste it on top of the others, and it's gonna be the same thing. Sometimes this doesn't work, but if it doesn't, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Just select it and make it flat, and you're gonna be ready to go. The thing is that the size of these pieces is going to be difficult, is going to be different, so changing it later when it comes to creating the UV template is going to be the solution, and it's not going to take that long actually, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. Alright, this one here seems distorted even though it is similar piece and stuff. This is what I was talking about. If it doesn't work, what you're gonna do, either you're gonna start working on it, and if it's a little bit complicated to work on it, again, you're gonna just copy the piece that, instead of copying the modifier, you're gonna copy the piece itself. And this will work too. If you are kind of bored from doing UVs and stuff, and if you think you're done and something like this appears all of a sudden, you can actually just skip it. Just be lazy and intelligent, just copy that shit, and you're gonna be ready to go. Okay, for now we're going to attach everything together as you've seen, and we will actually bring all the UVs together to what we call the UV template. So in order to do this, first of all we're going to separate the pieces that are going to be similar. So for instance, these pins that we actually copied all the UVs for, and we did the lazy and smart job right there. We need to actually right now to separate all these UVs because we want them to be non-overlapped. I personally like to have my UVs non-overlapping because this is what this is how I work. If you actually want to keep these small pieces overlapped, it's totally up to you. If it is something small like this, probably it's a good idea to keep it overlapped. But I don't want to do this because I want the details to be a little bit different. For instance, if one person wants to zoom a little bit and take a closer look at what I've done, I think it's a better idea to avoid these actually non-realistic similarities when it comes to the textures and stuff, because randomness is actually crucial for something that looks real, and not in terms of realism, but it looks something actually pleasant to look at instead of looking something fake or kind of not that good. Okay, after we actually make sure that everything is non-overlapping, we're going to actually start pushing the pieces inside the UV template, or what we are gonna create as a UV template. And to do this is gonna be an easy process, but sometimes it takes time, especially if the puzzle we are trying to make here is going to be tricky. So what we are dealing here with is going to be a puzzle that has multiple solutions, and it's completely up to you actually, the solution of that puzzle. Actually, there are billions of solutions But for the most part, you're looking for the solution that looks beautiful. This is what it is all about. So we're gonna try to push these vertices, UV islands and stuff inside the 1x1 rectangle that we are gonna work with here, which we call the UV template, and we're gonna make sure that it's gonna look elegant and nice when we are done. And we're gonna make sure as well that we're not gonna leave a lot of empty spaces, because this is important. All right, when we are done with the process of putting the UV template together, we're gonna start working on what we call the naming of the pieces. So, for instance, we're gonna bring the high poly version and the low poly version together, and we will start to separate them. Actually, separate the pieces by name. So we're gonna bring this name, the rename tool. We're gonna add a suffix for the LP underscore LP for the low poly and underscore HP for the high poly. And after that, we're going to rename every piece and each piece depending on the situation. So we're gonna start off with these pins here. So we're gonna select all the pins when it comes to the high poly, and we're gonna do the same thing for the low poly. So we're gonna select all these pins in the viewport, and what we will do is we're gonna just rename it. We're gonna call it whatever we want. If we will, doesn't matter. I was going to say something stupid, but it doesn't matter what the name is. It matters the most that you know what you are referring to, and also it matters that the name that you're gonna share between the high poly and the low poly is gonna be similar, except that the difference is gonna be when it comes to the suffix. So Substance Painter will know which one is going to be high poly and which one is going to be low poly in order to deal with them differently in the baking process. So you're going to select, what I'm doing here to the low poly version actually is I'm detaching the piece that I want to name. So I think and I believe this method is gonna be helping me to, as I remember, as Tom Cruise said, help me help you. It's kind of a funny thing to remember in this moment, but it's gonna be helping you to actually kind of keep track of the pieces that you separated and you worked on and you renamed, and the pieces that are still part of the section that you didn't work on yet. Actually, sometimes when in the process of naming, I actually end up trying to name some complicated stuff that I don't know how to. Some pieces are so freaking technical, so you don't have to complicate it that much. If you go with something easy, that's something that works for you. So here we are in Substance Painter, and we bring the low poly version to the viewport, as you can see here, and we're gonna start doing the process of baking. So we're gonna bring the high poly, and we're gonna actually go with kind of mesh name, and we're gonna use the suffixes that we used in 3ds Max. After that, we're gonna actually change some of the parameters of the ID map. As you can see here, these are the default. These are the things that I usually do. These are the parameters that I usually enter or use in order to get my pieces baked. So when you're done with that, double check before you start baking, because it's gonna be taken up to 1 hour. You don't want to do it again and waste that time, because it is time wasted, of course. And when you double check and make sure everything is in place, you're gonna start baking. It's gonna be taking a while. So when you're done, as you can see here, sometimes you're gonna see some weird results, but there are some things that you can actually are in your control. Others are just there, and they're not gonna be probably that noticeable. So we're gonna add a smart material, or just a material of leather that comes with Substance Painter, and we're gonna add a black mask in order to actually select only the area that we need. Okay, so when we are done with that, we're gonna change the color a little bit to something of kind of dark brown or something like that, because I think this is gonna look rad and look awesome. Okay, so for now, we'll try to find a smart material for another purpose, which is gonna be those pins on top and from the bottom as well. So we're gonna add the black mask. We're going to actually select only the pieces that are gonna be concerned with that matter of adding that material, and we're gonna be done with that material for now. Okay, when you're done selecting your pieces, you're gonna actually take a look at it, see if it is nice, and we're gonna jump to the other material. For now, we're looking for a material for that kind of leather piece that is actually part of that lock or whatever it is. So we're gonna aim for something like this, and add a black mask, select the areas that you need to select, and or the elements, and change the colors a little bit, and make sure it looks good in combination with the colors of all the other pieces. Or if you have a good reference image, I think you're gonna be it's gonna save you some time and some actually mental power, not trying to choose these colors on your own. Okay, the book for now seems like we covered the basics, and it looks good for now, except that there is some work we need to do. So for this texture here is gonna be actually for the papers, and we want them to look a little bit old, like yellowish and stuff. I don't want it to be looking too white because I don't want it to look too clean, because this is not my style. So we're gonna go to Photoshop, and we're gonna bring the UV template we work on 3ds Max, and what we'll do is we're gonna use this as a template for adding these ornaments that you can see here. So I'm gonna give you the files and stuff. If you are on my Patreon, you're gonna find all these on my Patreon, on my posts. You're very welcome to become one if you are interested. And this process here is gonna be a little bit, it's not gonna be hard, but you need to be a little bit accurate, by the way, because it's gonna be tricky when you export it if you're not if you're not sure which piece is gonna be which and stuff. So we're gonna bring this skull that you can see here, and make sure that you're gonna actually place it intelligently in a nice way. Of course, it's not gonna be that big because this is gonna be too much. So Control T from the keyboard in order to actually rescale this element here. I like working with masks and stuff like these because it's gonna add the most to the textures. Okay, we are probably gonna use another or a different drawing or design here, and I think it's gonna look better if we actually use different styles. So this plant design here is going to be on the sides, and we're going to make sure that we flip it, because I think flat surfaces should go together. So the flat area should be leaning against the side of the book, because, or the cover of the book, because it's going to be more efficient, let's just say. All right, so now we're going to cover these two layers. Keep holding Alt and move them. And probably gonna have to flip it vertically, let's just say. And let me tell you something, that this is also a process of trial and error. If you actually fail to get it right from the first time, you're gonna have to try again and recorrect and adjust your mask as you go. And when you see that your result is gonna be looking good in Substance Painter, you can actually call it a day and enjoy the rest of your models, and you're probably gonna go work on something else. So for now, this is gonna be the title of the book. It's Dragons of the Darkness. It's a cool name. I don't know how I came up. Probably I found it on some kind of weird. I did a Google search of kind of weird names for kind of wizard books or something like that, dark names for books. I ended up with something like this, with the nice the nice design and the decoration between on the top and the bottom. It seems like it's a good combination. I like it. And with these plants and stuff and that skull, I think it's gonna be looking great. Okay, so now we're gonna use the what we call the normal map that we exported. Probably didn't show you how to export this, but I exported these the normal map from Substance Painter. And why the normal map? Because the area that we're gonna place this ornament in, it does not appear in our UV template, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to use the normal map in order to locate exactly where this one is gonna be. So of course this is gonna be part of the mask, and it doesn't matter what we use, UV template, normal map, base color map. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're gonna end up with a black and white mask that we're gonna use in order to create some details when we go back to Substance Painter. So when we are done with that, I think we're ready to export our mask. So so for now, we're gonna add the black layer that is gonna be underneath everything, and we're gonna try to export this mask as a JPEG or a BMP or whatever type of image you want to use, or PNG, and export it. Make sure that everything is in place, and we're gonna go to Substance Painter and use that mask. And a quick disclaimer here, I just did some adjustment as we go, so you're gonna see things changing all of a sudden. It's because I was changing it as I went, so I paused the video and changed it a little bit. I didn't want to actually waste your time by working on these small pieces, kind of going back and forth. It's annoying, really. So I'm gonna separate this mask to two separate sections, to be honest. The first one is gonna be for the skull and the title, and the rest is gonna be for the plants and the borders and stuff. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring the first mask and drop it, or you're gonna drop them both, export them both and drop them both, and you're gonna add a fill layer. That was actually stupid. I was trying to actually drop the mask directly on top of the oh my god. So you're gonna create a mask and add the fill layer, then you're gonna drop that on top of the surface that on top of the area that is designed for dropping your mask. And what you can see here is the border, and the next one is gonna be for the skull and the title. So you're gonna add the black mask and the fill, and this will happen. Okay, it seems for now it seems like we got a nice result. So if you like this video, let me know. If we've never done something like this before on this channel, so this is probably something new, and I believe everything we do is something new. I don't repeat myself too much. So yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it around, because I know I'm certain that there are so many people who wish that they can find some tutorials like these, because I know that these are really helpful. And be a little bit generous and show people around what you're learning. because it's really difficult sometimes to share educational material and stuff. And yeah, right now I'm working on the height and the colors a little bit, because we want these designs to pop out a little bit, in order to actually to look beautiful and nice from a distance, or when you zoom into it like this. So this close shot is really interesting, because even though we are too close to it, it seems nice and beautiful, because we worked and we've done our homework, and we took care of it. That will result in something that looks beautiful, whether it be from a distance or when we zoom in at it. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate your help and your support. And yeah, I will talk to you soon in the next one.